Hi, this is a screencast to go over the creation of frequency maps within Persyst and a little bit of customization of those. This is Michael Guest, VP of Research and Clinical Applications for Persyst. Let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to be showing this in Persyst 14. You can do this in Persyst 13 as well for those frequency analysis tools. So let's go ahead and get started. The process is the same. I've opened up this recording from the database in P14. And if we go ahead and bring that up from the bottom of the screen, here's the record that we're going to have a look at, just because we've got some activity where we have some evolving changes in frequency. And there's, well, it's at the onset of that seizure. And as we go forward through the seizure, we can see it evolving from faster to slower, so we can look at the effect on the frequency maps to show what they're doing. So once we've done that, let's go ahead and show how to launch Insight 2 from a recording. So if we click the Tools menu, there's an option for Insight 2, and I've already launched it. It's at the bottom of the screen waiting for us, so here we are. And I've jumped into the recording at an early part of the seizure. And in Persyst, you can have the trends in EEG, and in Insight 2, you can do that as well. So if we click the M marker button up here, we can bring up the trends. I can split the screen, and we can use this to navigate to where we want. And the splitting of the screen is done by that little splitter here in the Insight 2 program. Of course, in Persyst 14, you can pick full screen trends, split screen, and EEG page. So in the Insight 2 application, where some of the analysis tools are housed, the navigation is a little bit different. So just giving you some review of that. And speaking of review, let's click the review button up here, and that will show the EEG page. The M marker button shows the trends and EEG and split screen. But we're going to look at mapping, so we'll click the review button. And we're starting off with a bipolar montage. Now for mapping, we want to use some sort of referential montage, and this is super important. And the reason is, when the bipolar recording, each channel has its own reference, which is the grid 2 input. So we want to have some shared frame of reference, and that would be with a referential montage. Now we have some built in. This happens to be the primary spike detection montage. We can certainly use that. We also have a couple of Laplacian montages that we can use. And why don't we do that? So we've got that going. We've selected our referential montage. And from the drop-down here, we have the ability to pick some pre-configured ones. We have an FFT delta theta alpha beta map that's built in, pre-configured. So when I click that, we get frequency maps. Now, first thing is, it's sitting over the middle of the screen. So in the Insight 2 tool, what we can do is we can move around here. We can get a double-headed cursor to move some of these things around. And that one moves the left end of that trend. This one here becomes a two-headed cursor right there, and we can move that, and it'll slide the whole thing over. So let's do that. And those are invisible. You kind of have to mouse over them to see it turn into that two-headed piece. So that'll let you set where that's going to be. And sometimes you might want it larger or smaller, depending on how much resolution you want to see in this display. Now, along the bottom of this frequency display, the FFTs for each channel, we can see the frequencies indicated for each one of these ranges that are at the top. So let's talk about ranges. If we right-click on this, we'll get a Properties menu. And in the Properties menu, in the upper left quadrant here, or more than a quadrant, we can see that we have the power spectrum selected. There's some other options here. Those are explained in our NeoPrism application notes. But we're going to do power spectrum, and we already have some bins described. Now, where these come from, if we do load from file, and we browse to the program folder, and it'll start out just going to where the recording is located, which might be the case, but we're just going to go to the C drive, and we're going to go to Program Data and Persyst, and we should have an FDA bins.xml file there, and that has those pre-selected bits. So once I select Open, it'll go ahead and apply those frequency bins here. Now we can add them. So if you have some custom ranges that you want to do, you can certainly do that, or if you want to edit this. So let's say we wanted to break this up into two. Beta 1, Beta 2. So I'll select Edit, and I'm going to set the upper limit here to 20. And I'm going to name this Beta 1. And I'm going to save to file. and we're going to call this FDA bins 2. You can call it anything you like. So now I've got a name for the frequency domain analysis. That's what the FDA bins stand for. I've got my beta one. I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to set this one going from 20 hertz up to 30 hertz, and I'm going to call this beta 2. Add. And so we've got our beta 1, should have our beta 1. Let's edit this, 20 to 30, that's our beta 2. All right, so I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to call this beta 1, make sure that we have that in there. Select new, low limit will be 13, upper limit will be 20. I'll call this beta 1. Add that. Okay, so now we have our beta 1, and this should be our beta 2. Yep, all good. So I'm going to save that to the file, overwrite my FDA bins. Yep. And when I hit OK, we can see that we've added another map here, and that would be doing the beta 1 and beta 2. So if you want different arrangements of frequencies, you can do that. Now I'm going to save this change that I made to the setup, and I'm going to go to montage, and I'm going to do save adornment montage, and I'm going to give this a different name. I'm going to call this my detail map. Okay, so what does that let us do? So now I've got a little drop down here. NA will turn off the mapping, and when I pick my delta theta alpha beta map, I get those ranges. When I pick this one, I get the original ranges and positions. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over to the right, and we'll resize that. And since I want it to remain there, I'm actually going to go ahead and go to montage, save adornment montage. I'm going to leave that name there and overwrite it. So that's how you can bring up frequency maps. I've got delta theta alpha beta. I picked it from here, and I can customize it by going into properties here and just changing the bins using the new add, clear, load from file, etc. So there's that. Now the other important tab to keep in mind is the data ranges tab. And right now it's looking at the current EEG page that's visible, and that's what it's doing mapping on. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK to that. Let's make a change to this. There's a couple of ways to do this. One is you can drop a range on the page and map that. So let's page forward a little bit on this. I'm just going to click in the scroll bar here and go to the onset. And let's say I want to do a shorter amount of time for this, and I want to move through it. There's a couple of ways to do that. Let's show one way. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the fixed position of new cursors, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a range in here, and I want to be able to move the EEG forward and have the range stay right on this position in the page and look at how the seizure evolves. So I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to insert a range of about 2 seconds. So once I selected insert range, I could go to here. So now I've got about a 2-second range. Now I'm going to tell this to use that range. So I'm going to go to properties on that, data ranges, and I'm going to pick ranges, and I could do visible, selected, or all. So I'm just going to hit that, and now that's updated. And notice the map changed a bit. So we have our delta, theta, alpha, beta. Now something to keep in mind is that, of course, the delta activity tends to be higher in amplitude than the bands above it. And right now we're auto-scaling. So if I right-click on the maps over here, we can pick the average amplitude, the sum, the frequency, peak, mean. There's some different things we can pick to map. I'm going to pick the topograph and the color. Topograph shows that we're using cubed interpolations. We're using a 1020 map rather than some other maps. You can do other custom maps, including 1010. And the color, we're using blue, black, red. Let's change this to blue, white, red. And notice, importantly, over here are the minimum and maximum auto scale. So right now it's going to look at the min-max across the bands and scale it accordingly. And you may want to turn that off in certain applications if you want to see absolute changes in amplitude as you're moving through, because otherwise, as we go through this, you're going to see these scale values over here on the right change with every move forward. So something else to keep in mind, you can choose to leave the auto scaling in place just to look at how they, try to fit all the bands in place, or within the dynamic range. Or you can turn that off and you can manually scale these so that, some frequencies may bloom past the color scale, that's okay. But the ones of interest, you may want to keep them within a certain range of display values, so that lets you do that. So I'm just going to hit OK here. And I'm going to, we saw the map colors change. I'm going to go ahead and press this single button here. What this is going to do, if I click in the gray area, it goes a full page. If I click this arrow button, it should just move it a second at a time. And we can see here the beta map. That's lighting up over this electrode. And so that's where the most of the amplitude is. So in this case, we don't have a large amount of delta, theta, alpha. We have most of this in the beta range, but that's going to change. We're going to see this move to the other maps as the seizure evolves from faster to slower. So as I go forward through this, notice the range on the page. It's staying right where I put it as I click the single arrow. And now as this slows, we can see it beginning to increase its display there in the theta map, or in the alpha map rather. So we'll go a little bit further. We'll get to theta in a minute. And so as we go a little bit further along, see it's really getting more intense there. Going further along, we're going to see this drop into the theta map. As we move this forward, you can see it's starting to appear there, still mostly in the alpha. Go a little bit further along. There it comes. So now you can see it definitely beginning to deflect in the theta map there. So we started with deflection in the beta, went to alpha, now we're in theta. And so as the seizure evolves, and again, we're looking at a referential montage, super important. It's comparing it to a single value. In this case, the Laplacian is calculated from an average of the electrodes directly surrounding each one. You can certainly use an average. And then as we get towards the offset of the seizure, we're going to see the delta map begin to light up more. So we've paged through the seizure. Now, there's some other things we can do. We can use comment ranges. So let's say we wanted to look at this during different stages of the seizure. So I'm going to jump back to the beginning of this, and we'll place some comments as ranges, as that's another option that could be handy for this sort of thing. So I'm just going to move up to the onset of this, and I'm going to put in a range. I'm going to get rid of this one just to clear up the screen. So when I right-click on this, I have an option for cursor control. I'm going to erase all. There they go. So now I'm going to go ahead and put in a comment. And to do that, I just click on the screen and I begin typing. So I'm going to type this in as @ just to make sure it's at the top of my comment list. Using that symbol, range 1. Okay. So I created this comment, but I actually want to create a duration. So I'm going to double click on this. And I'm going to drag the end, click on the word end, and drag it onto the page. And see, now I've created a 6-second comment. Click OK. So now I'm going to create another range. I'm going to page forward in this a little further. And let's say I want to make this next comment span a little bit further. So I'm going to click here, and we're going to type in range, or at range 2. OK. So there's where it starts. And if I want to reposition the start of this, I just grab the word start, and I can put it here. Let's say I want to start there instead. In the end, I'm going to page forward a bit. And I'm going to drag the word end here. Click on the word end, drag it. Now I've gone 20 seconds. So as long as this box is open, I can page around. The main thing you want to make sure is that your start is before your end. You want the end to happen later so you don't end up with negative ranges. Click OK. So now I've got range 2. And let's page a little further along in this. And we're going to put a range in here. I'm going to call this 3. All right. And we're going to mark this one. We'll just go over here. Just grab the word end, drop it on the page. It's 9 seconds. So I've got three comments. Now, where are they? Let's go ahead and click the comment list button. You can also go to the view button and show it. I'm going to sort this alphabetically. So I'm going to click text. And let's click it again. Put the alphabetically and increasing. So there's my range 1, range 2, range 3. Great, now what can we do with these? I'm going to right-click on this FFT, go to Properties, select data ranges, and now I'm going to go do events as ranges and selected. So I'm going to select a range that I marked, and then I'm going to update the maps based on that. So when I hit OK, this is showing the maps for range 1. This is showing the maps for range 2 and range 3. It's not updating. Let's see what happens. Go to properties. That is correct. Selected. OK. Well, that updated there. Go to range 3. I'm just having to go to properties to update that. So there's range 3. We can see the delta is lit up. Go to range 1. I'm just having to right click and go to properties without doing anything to refresh that. We'll make a change and update that, but this lets you set these in. And what's nice is when you close this, reopen it, your ranges are still there. And you can go back and map those same places. So in one case, we used ranges that we put on the page by right clicking. We deselected this fixed position of new cursors. That's optional, but in this case, what I want to do is I wanted to insert a range and have it follow me as I move the EEG. And then in the case, we use comments so that when we go back into this recording, we can pick those same pieces and apply that repeatedly. So, and the way we select that is we go to properties and we go to data ranges, and I'm going to pick ranges. And I'm going to pick selected. There we go. So now it's updated to selected. And as I either page or just bump through this recording a second at a time using that single arrow, it's going to update that. So there's a quick applied view of using the frequency mapping tools that are in Insight 2. We do have an extensive guide, the NeoPrism application notes, that goes through this in a lot more detail. There's a myriad of tools in here. I'm just going to right click, delete that or remove that from it. But when we right click here, we've got these vertical adornments, and there's a whole bunch of tools here that all are handy for different applications for localizing seizures. In some cases, there's some application notes on doing that. And even principal component analysis, we have some application notes on separating the EEG into components. And of course, we have application notes on using the FFT tools. So with that, my name is Michael Guest, VP of Research and Clinical Applications for Persyst. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions about using this. Have a great day.